That's no problem at all. So that's absolutely perfect timing from Lottie, wasn't it? The
Yes.
minute we say live, she says, right, okay, I want to be included. So welcome, Kari. Thank you for being here. So I've got 3 dogs here. So between us, we've got 4. So it could get quite noisy if somebody decides to knock the door, couldn't it? But do you know
Yeah.
what? It's fine, isn't it? Because we're
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah,
So, so
absolutely.
so thank you for being here. I was really excited actually to be talking to you this evening. So Kari, parenting specialist, coach extraordinaire. You're such a wise person. I fell in love with you the moment I met you. You know, you were just, yeah, I think we were just kind of really kindred spirits and drawn
Yeah.
together, weren't we, with the first
Yeah.
time we met, and so many shared interests. So, and you, of course, contributed to my book as well, which was an absolute blessing. So, thank you for being here. Can you tell us just a little bit about your life before you became a mum and before you became a business owner?
Oh gosh. Before I became a mum, well, that's a long, long time ago. It's wonderful to be here. I was born and grew up in Malaysia. So I had an amazing sort of mix of cultures and languages and experiences that really, really, when I look back on it, I took it for granted, but it was just amazing. But I always wanted to come back to the UK because although I was born in Malaysia, I was a citizenship Saturday job because, their laws are very, very strict over there. So when I finished sort of sixth form, I don't know what they call it now. It sort of changes so
I
much.
think it's still sixth form.
Yeah. I wanted to work and I made a deal with my dad to come back to the UK, work for a year, and then go back. And I came back to the UK and I got a job at the magistrate's court and I loved the independence. I wasn't living in a goldfish bowl because obviously in Malaysia I was, one of very, very few white British. And in my school, I was the only sort of white British person. So every time I sneezed, everyone knew about it. So coming back to the UK, it was like freedom. And I just loved it. So I loved working at the magistrate's court, but then I wanted to expand and I went to work at an estate agent's. But while I was working at the magistrate's court, we used to go every week to the police social club. And that's how I got to know my husband, and we went out from there, trying to keep it secret from everyone. That didn't
Right.
work.
Yeah.
But I sort of I always knew that I wanted to have children. However, I also wanted to travel more. I wanted, we'd just bought a house. And so at the back of our mind, yes, we would have children, but it was sort of a long time in the future. But obviously, things changed because I ended up, sort of unexpectedly finding out I was pregnant and just sort of having this overwhelm of a mum, me be a mum. How will I be a mum? And I remember actually I was just gone 9 months pregnant. And I all of a sudden, because I've been worrying about, what sort of mum I would be. Would I be able to look after this child? We were very fortunate. We did have a house, and I'm talking about 1985. Things were quite different then. There was no maternity leave, and I decided that I would stay at home, initially for a year, and then maybe I would go back to work. But I remember when I was about 9.5 months pregnant, well, just before he was due, all of a sudden, this sort of thought came over me, and I thought, I can't go back. This is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And there was this sort of like peace. And then moving forward, you know, sort of 3 children later, I things had changed. The economic environment had changed. My husband's career path just folded because the job in the printing industry just started to disappear. So I looked at, okay, so going back to work. And I slowly started sort of working part-time, working in the evenings, and always felt that there was something else. So I started working in schools. Um, and then I specialized in emotional literacy. And I just, wow, you know, this is amazing, you know. So then I worked for a health project in health promotion. Then I ran a youth project, and I started working with young people. And there was this disconnect between the work that we were doing with young people and what was going on at home.
Right. Okay.
And
Yeah.
there was a lot around, well, parents. And I was like, okay, but people are saying parents should, and why isn't the parents doing this? And I thought, but what support is out there for parents? So I started to volunteer for parenting courses that were being run, and I would be a mentor, basically welcoming parents, making teas and coffees, you know, sort of just making them feel welcome. And from there, I was asked if I'd like to train to deliver it. And I thought, yeah, this would be really useful in the work that I was doing with young people. It gave me a balanced view. And then a role as a parenting expert came up. And I hummed and hawed. You know, I was like, can I do that? And looked at sort of qualifications and that, and thought, well, yeah, actually, I've got that. And I was employed by Southampton City Council, and I loved it. I loved what the role. It was very supportive. It grew into managing the family and parenting team. And we worked in, and this word is talked about a lot, holistic, but we worked with the whole family. So we actually supported not just mum or not just the child, but the whole family, anyone that was involved in, you know, the family dynamics. And my whole ethos was, we work with, we don't do to. We work with, so we go in and go, what support do you feel you need? Rather than, this is what we're going to do and this is what we think you need. Had an amazing team. You know, some of the workers are now sort of managers themselves, and I've loved seeing them grow, but really passionate about their work. And you know, I would probably still be there if, and that's when things started to change. The whole family approach disintegrated for that period. We were taken into, frontline services, and it was very much crisis intervention because that's what was deemed was needed. And I really struggled with that. I know there's a need for it, but I just struggled with everything that we knew worked was slowly being taken away. And actually, I remember driving up the M3 to see a very dear friend of mine who was also a mentor. And I walked into her house, and she said to me, how's the role going? How's the new role going? Because for all intents and purposes, it was an amazing step for
Yeah.
me. It was, you know, and I just burst into tears, and I said, I can't do it. Every day I go to work, I'm having to gear myself up. I'm coming up with 101 excuses every single morning. I could ring in sick today. I could say, all that, and then putting on a mask and going into work. And she just looked at me and said, you've got to leave. This is not healthy. And even though I had all that training in, you know, anxiety and stress and emotional sort of literacy, and we brought that in for parents, because if a parent, you know, if you're sort of supporting a parent, but they are not emotionally strong enough to take some of that sort of, support on, then it's not sustainable. It's not going to change things. It's a sticking plaster. And I'd written programs on it with, health, etc., but totally missed all the signs of myself.
Yeah. It's such a fascinating thing, isn't it? That even when we've done the work, we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? Even when we've done the work, it's still a journey. We've kind of still got to go round and like make those realizations. So after all of that, so your own experiences of becoming a parent quite suddenly, I know I can empathize with that. And there's no book, is there, or so to speak, you got to come with it. And so being a parent to a dog is a lot easier, isn't it? And so it's so at the moment, so parenting is so important, isn't it? And from your own experiences, that will obviously be adding value to what you do now. So leaving your job, so you eventually left and started your own business. So you very kindly contributed to the book, and I was just reading back your chapter just before we came on air, and you talked about how you'd set up your courses, and we're all ready to get going. Yeah, I was exactly the same at that point, and then lockdown hits.
Yeah.
So so what challenges did you face in lockdown?
It was really interesting because I had been delivering online, but felt that I really wanted to get back into face-to-face, and I love groups. So I had spent probably 3 to 4 months prior concentrating on that and, sort of investing, etc. So when lockdown hit, I was a bit taken aback, and I thought, okay. And then I thought, I'm going to have to take a breath and think about the next step. But out of the blue, strangely enough, I was contacted by an American digital company who they could see that the directors, the departmental directors, were struggling with their virtual staff because all the teams then worked virtually, feeling isolated at home, and they were struggling with knowing how to support their team. And I'd done a brief piece of work with them previously. So initially I was like, wow, this was great. It was a weekly thing. It seemed to be a little bit like I could take a breath because I had something regularly coming in. I hadn't done sort of virtual networking before, or virtual, sort of outreach stuff. And it was really interesting because I'd always been a little bit phobic of it. I did the bare minimum, but I thought, oh no, how can you do virtual stuff and have the same energy and feeling? But quite quickly, because we were forced into it, I realized that I was connecting with people all over the world that I would not have connected with, or even over the UK, because I would not have driven up to Wales or Scotland for a meeting, but I was able to talk to women and, business owners on Zoom in a networking arena. And I was like, wow. And it, in a way, saved the getting into what's the word, but just getting into a pattern of not working, of I would think, oh, I've got a meeting at 10 o'clock, okay, and also because I was working with clients in America, it was sort of working later into the evening, but having the day where I could do walking or talking in networking. So that was amazing, and I think when we're forced to acknowledge that actually we think life is lived this way, but when that's taken away, there are so many other ways to connect with people. Yes, I miss the face-to-face, and I went to my first in-person networking meeting last Wednesday, and it was wonderful. We were all sat outside, but there still is something for the connection where you can connect with people all over the world.
It's such a crazy thing. Time takes on a whole new meaning, doesn't it? When, I love face-to-face networking, but it would be my whole day. And when we start to look at time, money, effort, energy, connection, absolutely, you can reach so many people, but it's almost like these things have to be forced upon us for us to see the logic in it. I find that absolutely fascinating. So working virtually now. So tell us a little bit, Kari, about the clients that you work with at the moment. So who are you helping right now?
It's mums. I work with mums, predominantly because mums tend to come forward for support.
Right.
And I help mums build their confidence so that they can hold their children's hands and support them to be secure with who they are. So understanding, that it's really difficult, but children's behavior is very rarely personal. But as mums, we take it that it's personal.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Your kids will absolutely be your biggest critics. Obviously my girls are grown up now. They're almost old enough to be having their own babies. Not yet, I hope, though, but soon. But I look back over their childhood and I think about, because we had, I was a single parent for a long time and that kind of stuff. And they say, "Oh, Mum, you don't remember things." And I was like, "Do you realise the PTSD that I was living through? Of course I don't remember when you fell over in the park or when you did this or when you did that." But you look back and the judgment that you can kind of give yourself about how you feel as a parent, and it is reflected from your children, isn't it? One of my girls is very good at making me feel like a good mum. The other one's very good at making me see where I'm feeling. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? But you're absolutely right. I've never thought, we take it personally, don't we? But it's their experience. So the mums that you help, are their children usually struggling with something, or is it the mum specifically who has the issue?
Normally they come for support because the child is struggling with something. Because as parents, especially mums, we don't tend to invest in ourselves and look at, okay, so I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling worried, I'm feeling anxious. Well, that's part of being a mum. And actually, we were talking before, there has been some amazing research that categorically states parents do not control their children's future. They influence it, but they don't control. But as parents, we spend so much time worrying about our children's future. And, and it sounds simple, but it's about what's happening here and now. And 90% of mums, over 17,000 mums were interviewed, and 90% of them said they felt judged by family, strangers, and friends. And that's a huge amount. But I'm wondering, I wonder what the percentage would have been if they were asked if they judged themselves. Because I think what you said was, yes, we hold ourselves to, but what does a mum look like? And we lose who we are.
Yeah.
And if we can show our children to be secure with who they are by being ourselves, then that's the greatest gift you can give them.
Absolutely. It's the age-old, kids do what you do, not what you say.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if that's not going to put pressure on you, I don't know what will. But this, yeah, and the joy of hindsight. I see it with my parents when they became grandparents. That kind of slightly smug, oh yeah, we know what's coming. That kind of thing. But it is hard, isn't it? And we were talking earlier about social media. When you and I grew up, there were 3 channels on the TV, but there was no social media. We were saying, the only way to judge a bad parent was if they smacked their kids, wasn't it? Or let them watch something on TV that you weren't allowed to watch. Now we're in everyone's lives. We know exactly what everyone's doing, what we think they're doing. And it just compounds it, doesn't it? And that pressure for the children as well as the parents, and as you say, we're trying to raise a 40-year-old, aren't we? We're trying to raise somebody who's a good adult. Well, try getting them to be a good 5-year-old. Let them be a 5-year-old. That's the thing. So, Kari, who needs to come to you? Who would be an ideal client for you? Who do you know is out there that you can really help?
Mums of children, mainly between the ages of like 4 to 14. But I recently did work with a mum who has 21-year-olds, and it was amazing. It's if you mums that are feeling overwhelmed, that are constantly worried, they are constantly feeling and self-doubting everything they do, and just feel like they're losing themselves in all of that. And it's sort of, it's really difficult, because obviously sometimes we can't even notice that. And I know what it's like to be so overwhelmed that you don't even know what question to ask. You really don't. But it's just if you're really struggling and you really feel that you're overwhelmed and worried, and you're losing yourself in all of that, and your relationship with your child is basically, there's a lot of arguing going on. There's not a lot of fun going on. And you're parenting and being sort of a mum, there should be fun. Should be able to laugh and enjoy. But it is about just stepping back and going, okay, this at the moment, this is not working. And I've got into this pattern of doing the same thing all the time. My mum has a saying, if you do what you've always done, you get what you've always got.
Yeah, absolutely.
But sometimes while you're in the midst of it, it's really difficult to see. So, and anyone that's worried about their child's anger or their child's anxiety, let's have a conversation. I offer a 20-minute free call, and, and sometimes it's just, that's all that's needed. To be totally honest, it's sort of like, okay, just signposting or giving a few strategies and, tools. But I tend to find that mums come back because it's like, it's really interesting. I never thought about how I reacted, and I realize that my confidence and my self-esteem is so low that I can't see the things I'm doing well. I can't see the things my child's doing well. I've got very caught up with that.
Yeah. Two in the moment. And as we know from, so as I was saying with my kids, I was in constant fight or flight. And as we know, you're in survival mode. You can't process things. You can't think about things. And, in that moment when your child is struggling and you're struggling, it's bringing that calm. And like you say, that 20-minute conversation, it's enough to know you're not alone. You're not the only one. I don't want to use the word normal, but it's not unusual to be experiencing, because it's not an original story. There's not one parent out there struggling. I would offer, I don't, of all the parents I know, I don't know any that don't struggle. They all have different struggles, and they manage them in different ways. But so being able to keep the mum mentally resilient in order to be able to manage their child and their issues. And and being a child these days is pretty stressful, isn't it? So you're going to drop some links into the comments for how people can contact you, so that will be great. So I'm going to ask you one last question, Kari. What does 2021 have in store for you for the rest of the year? Do you have a big goal that you're working on?
Yes, I'm looking at running some courses. Really excited about that, and I'm offering a free 3-day workshop called Breaking the Myths of Being a Mum. And then looking at a course all around building emotional strength, and confidence, because we've talked about it, and it's about realizing that you just give yourself a break and actually, building your confidence of knowing that, and being happy with who you are is magical. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've got a couple of sort of collaborations that I'm really looking forward to. And also, there is an amazing series of books that I am beta reading for children around emotions. So excited about that, and looking forward to that. Sort of when it's obviously published. So some really lovely things. And personally, I cannot wait to be able to fly out to San Diego to see my son and my 2 grandchildren.
Yeah, absolutely. So the things we've missed, isn't it, in lockdown? So whilst we can pivot and adapt, and business hasn't been, we've found ways to make it work and that kind of stuff. It's those things, it's the important things, it's family, isn't it? Those are the things. I think that's where people have really struggled, and so that's going to be amazing, isn't it? So those books down, so so since writing my book, and so V's got her book coming out soon, so, and she's very kindly said, would I beta read it for her? Well, I asked, can I beta read it for you? She said yes. It's such an exciting thing, isn't it? And I'll also do is I will drop in the comments the link to my book as well, because it's my book,
and it's amazing. It's honestly, read it. I highly recommend it. Absolutely.
Oh, that is so kind of you, Kari. And what I loved, the contribution each of you made to that book as well, just made it so much more so special, because when it came out, it was it felt like a team effort, and it was absolutely amazing. I loved it. And I would put to anybody out there wanting to start a coaching business, because we think parenting's hard, try having a business. So your story particularly is very inspirational. So I'm super grateful for that contribution, and thank you so much for being here this evening. It's been
my pleasure.
It's been we needed to catch up way before this, didn't we? And we will catch up, and we will do it face to face as well, because apparently soon we will be allowed to do that.
We will,
it's going to be amazing. So Kari, if you drop your comments, drop your links and everything into the comments, and we'll see if we can get your reach out there. And so if people are interested, even if it's just that 20-minute phone call,
and I've got a free group. I'm in there all the time, doing lives, talking about things. So, any mums that just think, I'm not ready to talk to anybody, but I just want to explore, and I go in there, and and it's a bit of fun, but it is all around parenting, and being a mum.
Oh, that's amazing. So no excuses, is there? When someone offers a free group and offers to come in and give away their coaching expertise for free in a Facebook group, we love it, we enjoy it, that's why we do it. There's no excuse for anybody to hold back, is there? Because it's all out there, and you can help them. So brilliant, amazing, brilliant. Thank you so much for being here, Kari. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And we'll catch up soon. Take care.
Take care. Bye.